Hey guys, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I want to share with you some tips and tricks for how to grow the maximum amount of greens on a tower garden. This is my home unit. It has an extension kit on it, a baby greens extension kit, and you can see it's exploding with just an enormous amount of greens. Whether you want to juice or make smoothies, or if you just like to eat an enormous amount of greens, I have found some people really struggle to maximize the amount of greens they can grow on an aeroponic tower. So today we're gonna dive into all these different varieties I'm growing, talk about how to plant your seeds, how many seeds you wanna plant, and then how we're going to harvest this and what we do with it next. So let's dive into this tower and take a look at everything that's growing. All right, we're gonna take some close-up looks, and then I'm gonna start to harvest a lot of this. So I'm going on a trip with the children to a camp where there's not gonna be a lot of food for me to eat, so I'm gonna be bringing a lot of juice. And I set this tower up intentionally to go with an ebook I'm writing about greens to grow for maximum health and wellness, and because I knew I needed a ton of greens to go on this trip. One of the problems I've been having lately, and you may have this too, is that starting seeds in the dead heat of the summer can cause poor germination rates and really slow seedlings to pop up. Some things just don't like the heat and the humidity, and I fell behind on starting seeds, and my seeds are just not having a super great germination rate or coming up at the right time. If you're starting seeds in the spring or in the fall, they come up so quick and they just thrive. But just know, if you're starting them in high humidity, high heat, it creates a situation where it's just hard to start seeds. So I've moved my seedlings into the house. I'm starting new seeds, but I don't have replacements for these. So instead of harvesting the whole plant, which I often talk about how I like to take the whole plant out most of the time and then start over, I'm not going to be doing that today because I don't have replacements for this. And we never want our towers to have a bunch of openings, especially in the dead heat of the summer. Rain will come in, dilute your minerals, water will evaporate and make your minerals too strong if there's openings. And one of the reasons why I like to harvest the whole plant is because we don't want big, large root systems in our towers for too long. It takes up too much water and too many minerals. I also believe many plants change flavor. They get spicier, can get bitter, the texture can change when you cut the whole thing and let it grow back. Now, when we're talking about baby greens, I always cut them once and let them grow back a second time, and then I start over. These were set up as baby greens, but summer is busy. Now they're really more like full-grown greens, but we're still gonna treat them as if they're baby greens because I need things to juice. I wanna show you guys the amazing abundance of greens you can grow if you plant this way. I want you to see how big things can get, even in the baby green section of the tower. And we're just working with what we have. And if I come back in town and those greens grow back and they aren't to my liking as far as flavor, then I can compost them or give them to the chickens. I always juice things even if it's not the best flavor because I can't taste them in my juice. So I'm pretty sure I'll just let them grow back in juice. And that just gives me a little leeway. So just know, even though I talk about harvesting the whole plant, sometimes there is a situation where that's just not going to work out. So let's take a look at what's on this tower because it's getting dark really quickly. But it's been so hot, it's the only time I've been able to come out here and make this video. I have my garden pouch with my hori knife, my clippers, and I've got some scissors here. And this is the home unit. So this one's typically for growing indoors. The Flex unit has a 20-gallon tank. You can see the plants on the Flex are massive. That doesn't mean you can't grow really large plants on a home unit. It's just smaller. It's only 13 gallons. On here, I have this micro dwarf tomato, and this is the orange hat, and it's been doing great. We've been eating off of this one. You're not going to replace all your tomatoes from the grocery store with something like this, but they're definitely fun to snack on. I have another tomato here that is doing really great. I have some kale, and this tower was set up to grow greens for juicing and for really showing how you can maximize greens. But occasionally I have tomatoes that need a home, and that's how those ended up here. So let's walk around here and just take apart what's on this tower. Talk about how to grow and harvest each plant. So here I have just a standard kale. This one, I planted 2 seeds. You can see right here. So we've got 2 individual kales coming out of this. And I harvest off of these as I need kale. I made kale chips recently, and I just take leaves from around the edges as I want to eat them. And that's how we deal with our kale. When I get back in town, I don't want this to get a whole lot bigger than this. Another month, this one's probably 2 months old. 3 months is about the max for a full-size kale because they will get giant root systems and just get too cumbersome. You can tell I've eaten off of these a bunch. And that just makes it where I'm not having to harvest and store this where it's gonna lose its freshness. I'm just gonna harvest what I want and leave the rest so that it's getting all the maximum nutrients. All right, and here I have some celery, and celery's the same thing. I have a max life on my celery. It's about 4 months. I've been eating off of this one a lot. I've actually moved this one around quite a bit, and it's really struggling. So we're gonna take some of these, if I can do it with one hand. There's a bad leaf there. And when I get back in town again, once I have some seedlings ready to go, we will harvest this whole thing, juice it, and replace it. So these are just falling into my bucket down here. Celery is amazing to juice. It's a superfood. It's contaminated when you buy it from the grocery store many times, and it grows really, really well. So highly recommend growing celery. You can also just cut off the top too if you need to make some room or some light. Here is Thai basil. So that's not really a green for juicing, but I still like the Thai basil for all kinds of recipes and for smoothies. So I put it on my tower because I do use this in juice and smoothies. It just gives so much flavor. It doesn't have to be Thai basil, it can be any basil. But basil is a great one to grow. With basil, you're gonna wanna start 4 to 6 seeds, and you're gonna wanna take the heads off before it goes to flower. It's gonna wanna flower pretty quickly in the heat, so just stay on top of that. Here is a dinosaur kale, and this one, I don't really know what happened. This one has some damage, so we're gonna go ahead and cut that off. There's some good leaves here, and I'm just gonna cut these and let them fall to the ground, and we'll collect when we're done, just because it's actually getting really dark really fast. So we're gonna just get rid of this stem that's got some damage, and we will clean that up when we're done. All right, so moving up on this tower, there is cilantro. I have quite a bit of cilantro on this tower. Cilantro wants to bolt really quickly in hot areas, and it's been really hot here. So one trick is to cut it. It's small. If this was a giant full-grown cilantro, I would not do this. I would just harvest the whole thing. But because it's been stunted, because it's hot and it's going to want to go to seed really quickly because of the heat, it is okay to harvest the whole thing and let the greens grow back on that. Above that, back here, we have some, looks like arugula. I've got it hiding. It's a new plant. When I do my arugula, I do as many as 30 seeds. I take a whole pinch of those. So we're just gonna leave those because they are just getting started. That'll be something I can eat when I get back in town. This is cilantro, same thing. Very tiny, we're not gonna mess with those. Here we have arugula. Arugula is actually amazing to add to your juices. It is potent and wonderful medicine and amazing, and in juice you'd be really surprised. One of my favorite juices is tangerines and arugula. So you can juice your arugula. All right, going up the tower, we have Swiss chard. Swiss chard, I let this go 4 or 5 months, just depending on the plant. You want to start 4 to 6 seeds. I actually have a whole YouTube video on Swiss chard, and I'm just going to cut these like this, take some of those off and leave the rest, just like we did with the kale. Now as we get higher, we're gonna start seeing some really robust greens on here. So we have Mizuna, and Mizuna is in the mustard family, And it's got a little spice when it gets this big, but when you harvest it super small as a baby green, you've probably had this in salad mixes. It's very mild, really good for bone health and vision. It's high in antioxidants. So we're gonna cut this and let it fall to the ground because I can't do this with one hand. All right, we're gonna just cut it and let it grow back. Next, we have some mustards growing here. This is a mustard that's growing. We're gonna cut that one off. All right, and I'm not gonna be able to harvest these and talk about them at the same time. So let me just go through and show you guys. We have some bok choy here. These are absolutely gorgeous. When I grow them like this in a bundle for juicing and for greens, these are going to be planted. I'm gonna plant those anywhere from like 8 to 12 seeds, and that just gives us this gorgeous bundle. You can see how many greens are on there. Here we've got more Mizuna, and just to give you an appreciation for how big these are, let's take this out. So this is the baby green section, and there it is. So we have an abundance of seeds that have grown. This is full of water, full of nutrients. I will cut that and put it back just so we fill that hole. Just wanted you to see how big things can get in the baby greens section of your tower. So don't underestimate your baby greens section. This is bloody sorrel, and it's an excellent kind of limey tasting leaf. We're gonna harvest just a few of those. Those are just getting started, so I'm not really worried about trimming those back. Here we have cilantro going to seed, so I will cut that. This is an Italian leaf parsley, which gets leggier and bigger. So it's not one I typically grow in the baby greens section. So what I'm gonna do is give that a haircut, and that way when I get back, once it regrows a little bit, I can move it to a different spot, just because it gets so bushy that you can see it's kind of leggy and doesn't make a lot of sense in this section. This is chervil, that's just getting started, so we won't mess with that. It's in the parsley family, tastes like licorice. All right, moving along the tower, we have more basil. There's an example of one that's wanting to flower, and we don't want it to do that. So I'm just gonna come and look for where it's growing, some extra leaves, pop that off, add it to our juice bin. All right, we've got more dinosaur kale. We've got more bok choy. So gorgeous. The smell of that basil was incredible. And then up here, this is from I believe a leaf miner. I don't really worry about those. I rarely have them do so much damage that it's a problem, but we just take off the bad leaves. It looks like there's a couple of leaves that have damage from that. Here is a pea, and this is growing from one of the baby greens sections, and I'm gonna just train it to go down. You can eat the pea greens. You can cut these, add them to your juice. Here we have more Swiss chard. This Swiss chard is really abundant, so we'll add that to our juice. And this is gonna free up some space. Have big mustards. Big mustard plants. I'm sorry guys, this video, didn't realize how dark it was gonna get so fast. But I wanna show you guys this tower before I hack at it, because it's time to juice all of these things. This is a curly leaf kale. I'm gonna make kale chips out of this. And we just harvest this the way I've been showing you with the other kale. Rip off a lot of leaves. All right, and the reason we want to do this and do it often is because it frees up space on the tower for our tomato and for other things. If we leave these and let them get bushy and we're not eating them regularly, this is a whole kale chip meal that I'm harvesting here, then we're really not using our tower to its greatest capacity. And I'll see that. I'll see people who have a thing of lettuce on their tower. We have more bok choy here, and they'll harvest a few leaves for like 8 months. And yes, it will work that way. These have some damage, so I'm just going to give those to the chickens. But that means we're not really replacing the grocery store if we're using one head of lettuce and eating off of it for 8 months. So I'm going to show you guys quickly the other things that are growing, and then I'm going to get to harvesting. So we have arugula, more mustards, more bok choys. Again, these I'm planting very heavily, 6 to 10 seeds for all of them. When I'm doing the baby greens like this one right here, this right here is a plant called mabuma. It's a Japanese mustard. It's very mild when it's small. With things like this, I'm planting, and things like arugula, I could be doing as many as 30 seeds. I'm taking a pinch and putting it in my rock wool because I want these super dense. Mustards, we only have to do 4 to 6 seeds or so. We've got some more large leaf parsley here. We've got some more celery. We can definitely harvest the celery for juicing. All right, and I'm gonna set you guys up and get to work before we have no more daylight left. Here's some endive. This one's going to seed, so I went ahead and harvested the whole thing. It's just too hot for that. We're gonna toss the scraps in the garden. This is a cilantro that's already gone to seed or already gone to flower. I'm still gonna eat this. Actually smells amazing. Because I'm juicing, I can manage that. And we're just gonna cut. There's some mustard greens. My mustards, I typically do 4 to 6 seeds. So one of the biggest things I wanted to express when growing greens and making sure that you have an abundance of greens like this tower here is that you keep in mind interval planting. So we're constantly starting new seedlings, so as things age out we have things to take their place, and we have plants in the baby green stage all the way to the mature stage, and then also increasing the amount of seeds that you're adding per rock wool. I grow individual bok choy all the time by using just one seed because I'm going to be using those bok choy for stir fries, and I want them to get to their full size. And that's a common practice too when the weather is cooler because it's a cool weather crop. But a hack we can do if we want to increase our yields of things like that is plant 4 to 8 seeds or 6 to 8 seeds or 4 to 6 seeds instead of just one, so that they're growing faster and we're getting a bigger bouquet, and we're going to be able to beat the heat a little bit better that way. It takes longer for one bok choy seed to become a mature bok choy than it does for several seeds to create a bouquet. So that's sort of the idea here. That's why I can grow a giant mustard just using one seed, but if I put 4 to 6 seeds or 4 to 8 seeds, I'm going to get that bouquet, which is just going to increase my yield. It's going to make it faster, and it's going to offer up more greens so that we do have things we can be grabbing to juice or add to smoothies every single day. You can see just how big this Mizuna is. So we're gonna chop this. Again, this is many seeds that created this. And we're gonna put this one back in. Here's some more endive. I'm gonna go ahead and cut all the endive because it's getting so hot it wants to bolt. There's a lot of Swiss chard in these, so let's clean that up. Again, we don't want to cut our pea, but I do want to get all this arugula. More bok choy. This is a marigold, and it's just for beauty and pest control. Really, it's just for beauty. I don't have a lot of pests. Not ones that I think a marigold would help with. All right, what do we have here? This is the Mibuna, M-I-B-U-N-A or M-A. I forget which one it is. When growing on the baby greens extension, I do cut off these tall Swiss chards. I keep my Swiss chard pretty small because Swiss chard leaves can get this big. So here's our mabuma. Actually, that's arugula. Bring you over here. And another thing that I like to do and that I mention often is that instead of using standard seed packages for a lot of the things that I'm growing for baby greens or when I'm using a lot of seeds, I will do sprouting seeds. So you can't find sprouting seeds for every single variety, but things like arugula and Lola Rosa lettuce and lots of different greens will come in sprouting seeds, and I will post a link below to where I purchased my sprouting seeds. And what that does is it just saves a ton of money. A package of seeds, especially quality seeds from a good grower that's offering a lot of unique varieties, will often only give you up to 100 seeds per package. And sprouting seeds, you can buy them by the pound for not even a quarter of the cost. So that's a great option. So look for that link below if you want to know where I purchase our sprouting seeds. And here I'm just going to continue cutting off everything. It's things I've mentioned before: arugula, mabuma, parsleys, celeries, kale, oregano, cilantro, all the amazing greens that offer so many health benefits for us. And a lot of these greens are either hard to find at the grocery store, or they are the more contaminated greens where they're high in pesticides and herbicides if you're not buying them organic. So this just offers us the healthiest, freshest greens in abundance to grow for making our own smoothies and green juices and for salads. Here's another mabuma. We've got some basil down here. More mustards. Those are very wasabi. Woo! That'll bite you. Those are spicy. Like, wow. So good. If you don't like spicy food, growing greens in the heat of the summer, probably not a good idea. You can move a tower. These towers will all go inside. So you can move your tower inside and that'll keep them from getting spicy. Or you can use your tower to grow summer foods. All right, I think we did it. Oh no, I cut my pea. We'll juice the pea. The root is still in here, so it's fine. I actually don't know where the root is. Oh, there it is. I found it. We still have pea. It's fine. Let's go ahead and cut. I'm going to cut this whole celery. It's a small one. And I really just want to free up this tower, so I went ahead and cut and left a couple of inches on the celery. Let's do this one too. That stem is bad. What that'll do is just allow light for this whole tower. Yes, it's so hot out and so sticky. I don't know where it's like where you guys are at, but it's just so hot. So I wanted to do this in the closer to the sun setting, and I actually pushed it way back. So sorry about the lighting and the dark video, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to show you guys all that can grow on a tower. Now, if I were to make a juice with greens, so I actually harvested 3 sets of greens the other day and made 3 big juices out of those. So if you have a tower with an extension kit on it, we have 64 grow spots on a home unit if we add a baby greens extension kit. That is a lot. So sometimes I think when you see the greens in this video, it may not look like a lot, but this right here I'm gonna make kale chips with. But this is an enormous amount of food for making green juices or smoothies. Just several pounds. So I'm going to be able to make about 12 16-ounce green juices with this amount of greens, which is a lot. That's a 10-day supply or longer, because I don't always do a green every single day. So on that tower, I still have things I could harvest. There's still Swiss chard and kale that could be harvested tomorrow if I needed it to make another green drink. The things I cut will grow back and grow back pretty quickly. Not as quickly as if I put really ready starts into my tower. Those would grow a little bit faster because these are gonna go through shock, but these will still grow back. Within the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to harvest again. Or if I put new seedlings in, if they're the right size, within a week, you can start taking greens off of those, and then they just get as big as that Mizuna you saw within a few weeks, 5 weeks max. So this is an abundance of food. This is so much that can be juiced. I juice and freeze my juice in the freezer. So I just put it in containers and freeze it that way. I like to do apple, ginger, lemon, and greens. I keep it pretty simple. And because it's summer, we do want to let these soak. And your greens will get super wilty, especially if you're crumbling them like I am. But these are getting juiced, so I'm not real worried about it. But what I like to do is to take my greens and set some cold water in here. Let them soak for a while just to clean them up. And here I am juicing all of that harvest. It takes a while to juice that many greens, but I have found tricks to make it easier. One is investing in the right juicer. This is a Kuvings Revo 830, and I'll put a link below to that. And I don't have to pre-chop any of the fruits and things that I add to this juicer, so that makes it a little bit easier. And then I also just bulk batch everything, which saves a lot of time, and so I don't worry about adding 3 apples and then a lemon and then the right amount of greens. I just toss in everything I plan to use, fill up different containers, and then I'll mix those containers, which is what I'm doing here. And I'm just giving it one more strain because I juice things like lemons that can add a lot of sediment, and I just mix it back and forth so that all the different flavors are evenly distributed between all the different canisters or containers it took me to fill those up. And you can just see how green and how lush this juice is. And the straining is just personal preference. I like my drinks to be super smooth, so I just go this extra step, but it's not always necessary. So once I feel like they have been mixed, I'm just going to go back and forth here, mixing up the greens just to make sure. Lots of people have juicing recipes. There is a YouTuber, Fully Raw Christina, who does really great recipes. I have just found it easier because I'm growing things, and greens taste different and cucumbers taste different, and apples based on how they were grown and when they were harvested. I find it easier just to use a foundation of things I like, which is typically apple, lemon, ginger, and then I add my greens, and I will just add more ginger or more lemon or more apple based on taste. So I gave this one the thumbs up, and now it's time to put them into individual containers. I am traveling and taking these when I travel, so I purchased some plastic containers just because I needed to be able to throw these away when I was done, and just to make sure it was easier to travel with this many juices. Typically, I just store them in glass jars and put them in the freezer. And I have had the question, how long do they stay fresh? In the fridge, it's only about 3 days, but in the freezer, it's pretty indefinite. I try to drink them right away because the goal is to be drinking the green juice and getting all those healthy nutrients into our bodies. But I don't believe there is an expiration date as long as you can store these in the freezer. If you want a complete list of greens to grow for juicing, I'm going to put that in the description below. So make sure to check that out. And I hope this inspires you to grow an abundance of greens for health and wellness. Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate you watching these videos and all your kind comments and feedback. Let me know what questions you have in the comments. It helps me to know what kind of videos to make.